So, Andy, what got you into this, I suppose, in the first place?
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I just wanted to push where my comfort zone ended and how far I could kind of take it. Really, I don't know. The purity of the racing collective events had appealed to me, and didn't really know which one to do. And John O Groats as a concept has appealed, but doing it on the road never really sparked anything with me. And the kind of mixing up of off-road, which is kind of my bread and butter, and doing something point to point with a kind of destination and a goal in mind kind of scored highly. And it was difficult to not try and chuck my name in the hat and see if I'd be able to scrape through with the experience I did have, which was pretty limited at doing stuff like this. So.
Yeah. So GBDURO is pretty unique, though, isn't it? Is it racing? I suppose it is racing.
Yeah, it is racing. There is a winner, but no one really minds who wins, I guess.
And there's no prize.
No prize. But I think that's good. I think
rather recognition.
It's pretty pure as well in that it's grassroots. It's quite cheap to do comparatively.
Yeah.
And it's relatively accessible as well. I mean, you haven't got to jump on a plane and fly to the other side of the world to have a big adventure.
Yeah.
The kind of environmental impact on doing this sort of stuff is minimised then as well by just sort of starting from points where you can get to via trains and public transport and whatnot, and get back again by the same method.
So I suppose what I should have said is, starting this out was, you've done it now, how are you? Because a lot of people have been saying, how the hell, how are you? What's
For the record, 2 weeks has gone past since finishing, and finally starting to feel good again. The knee was not happy, having had to deal with what the last day threw at me. But yeah,
the one-legged pedal with this. The pedal, which we'll go into in a bit.
But yeah, 2 weeks of rest, recovery, and a bit of kind of sports therapy, and I'm good again now. Stronger than ever, really. It's kind of, when you think about it, of 9 days of training harder than you've ever trained, I guess. It's,
Yeah. So you're feeling good now?
Feeling solid, which is good.
So how about the bike? How was that?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, the first stage from Land's End through to mid Wales, the first sort of 2/3 of that stage to Bristol was predominantly road. It was a lot of it changed between like sort of smooth gravelly sections and sort of very very smooth road sections, but predominantly it was a gravel kind of suited stage. And the bike was a bit slower, but I was trying to plug the gap with the people who were on the gravel bikes by just putting more effort in at the hills, and it took maybe 8 or 9 hours of to realise I just had to let them go and the bike would come into its own. But it's a bit of a weird thing to do when you're not used to just letting people go. Eventually settled down and sort of realised that just with the ebb and flow and the general just keeping trucking, I'd be able to keep up. And there was about 6 or 7 of us all within the first stage where our pace was very similar, so you'd stop to grab water or stop to go to the loo or whatever, and like 2 people would fly past. So like the ebb and flow of 6 of us for like the first kind of 2-3 days was so close. So you never really felt truly alone. Which was quite a good kind of introduction to it, because as a complete novice to how long I should be riding, how many miles I should be trying to do, what other people are doing. I didn't really know a lot. I was learning a lot on the fly, really. Because like going fast for 6-12 hours is normal, but doing that day in day out for longer, just complete other world to me, really. So the bike was a bit slower on the first stage, but the minute we crossed the bridge and like stuff got real then, and it got very rough and bumpy, and the bike came into its own then. And I think the pace I was losing on the smoother bits, and especially on the bits where there's a headwind because of the frontal area, I was kind of gaining back on the fact that the bits everyone else was definitely pushing, I was still trucking along, even if it was slowly. And like there was one section in, I think it was towards the sort of the tail end of the first stage, where the route didn't really have an obvious path for like a mile or 2. And it was through like a tussock infested field. And I was just boshing away over all of these. It was like, I'm definitely going quicker than like anybody else will, because they can't be riding this. And then I spotted there was like the actual path I was supposed to be on was like a metre to the side. So like I was wasting time bouncing off the route. But the Garmin looked like I was on it, but it was just GPS inaccuracy. It's very difficult to see in the dark as well.
So kit wise, do you reckon you made any mistakes?
Yeah, I made a few kind of rookie errors. So like, I think the main thing I messed up was I didn't take a sleeping mat. Just thinking light is best, and trying to take as little as possible to squeeze on the bike. No, I know. but like I didn't really think about like versatility and like what doors it would open up. So like everybody else was really creative with their sleeping, and like barns or anything that had a bit of a roof, they just whack their sleeping mat down on the whatever the floor was, gravel or concrete or whatever, and just kit for like 1 or 2 hours and then get moving. But whereas I only had an inflatable pillow and a tent, I was always looking for somewhere to pitch that, which obviously took a bit longer, and it's quite difficult to get out of that cocoon when the weather's bad as well, so like it would take longer getting up than it should have as well. So yeah, that was the biggest rookie mistake I made, and why I wasted more time sleeping than anybody else, I think.
So you almost don't need a tent?
I think it was great in the tail end of Wales and all of Scotland because the midges were bad. They were like, they weren't bitey, but they were really tickly, and like it wore quite thin at times, and like just having a cocoon to get out of that was good. So I think I'd take both next time. I'd probably take the bivvy bag for convenience of just bosh it somewhere and go to sleep, and then like the tent for the, I just want to get out of the situation I'm in and hide from the weather. And I think it'd be worth the extra weight just for that kind of versatility. So yeah, doing this sort of event again, I'd definitely take a mat. And I didn't really get cold or anything, which is another thing a mat's good at. It's good for insulation, but just the versatility really, I kind of lost out a bit. What
proved to be good and bad, or?
So I'd seen the weather report before leaving, and like Cornwall looked great, but like the long range forecast for later into the event definitely looked like rain. So I went with using the Stolen Goat kit, which is the range I was using was their Orkan range, which they describe it as a capsule. So the actual equipment itself is water resistant. So the bib shorts I was using, and which are down here somewhere, I'm covered in super glue from repairing the bike. So the shorts and the short sleeve jersey I was wearing underneath from a slam jersey are both water resistant, and the majority of the rain just beads straight off them. So you end up with, you get a tiny bit damp on the inside, but not enough to make you cold, and not enough that it won't dry out as you pedal anyway. And I went with the short sleeve options as well, as it gave the versatility to sort of take off the arm warmers and the kind of waterproof leg warmers I was using to kind of just sort of adapt to whatever the weather was doing. So I was continually taking the arm warmers on and off, as I could do that without stopping. And that worked really good for sort of just regulating my temperature, and like it's really important for water use as well, so that you're not sort of sweating like excessively or whatever. And when you've got a limited water supply, you need to be regulating your temperature well. So I used this kit underneath for the vast majority of the ride. For the Cornish bit, I started off wearing this underneath and got very hot quickly because it was like close to 30 degrees near the end of the first day. So I was just wearing the slam jersey and then the Orkan bibs. Yeah, that worked quite well for the warmer day. And then as it got cooler into the evening and stuff, just whack this underneath.
But you rate the old Stolen Goat?
Yeah, it's really good quality kit.
We're just about to start stocking it, so hopefully. We've had a few people in the past that have used it and raved about it. So
the leg warmers and stuff especially make such a difference, because they normally end up getting saturated and damp if you've ever used them before, and they end up making you colder in the end. But whereas them, they kept me warm, and like most of the water fell off, and they kept the shit off me as well, because I fell off a couple of times into that.
So did you bother? Did you just sleep in your kit, or?
No, I was trying to take it off to sort of just let stuff vent as best possible. So I had like a very light set board strips I could find, which did the job, and then a t-shirt, which is just something nice and dry to stick on, a hat, no boxers, no spare bibs, no nothing. Got ripped a bit for that from some of the other people, which was funny, but that was literally all I had, and that worked really well for sort of diving into that kit and then jumping in my sleeping bag. But yeah, the hat worked great as well. It's like that combined with the kind of neck warmer I was using was a great kind of midgie repellent. Having this like wedged up here with a hat over the top, I looked like an idiot, but it was great for keeping the midges away. So you're getting a bit kind of crazy, especially at the like first checkpoint where we were camping next to a river and stuff. It was pretty intense in terms of midges.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
So you got an awful lot of kit there. Well, I say awful lot, you probably haven't actually in the great scheme of things.
Yeah, I tried to pack light, but didn't want to get myself caught out with what I was like carrying, just in case like something mega went wrong. So I had a few things I did definitely need to carry. So I knew water was going to be a bit of an issue later into the stages, so I was using a water filter rather than the purification tablets. And the kind of logic behind that was it would give me water supply instantly, so I could just squeeze through and start drinking the water straight away and kind of hydrate myself and fill up the bottles for the same kind of stop. Whereas if you use the hydration tablets, you've got to wait 30-40 minutes for the water to then be to a point where it's drinkable. So I think
is that, you don't need to change anything in that, it just works?
No, you have to like dry the filters out once you've finished using it if you're not going to use it for a sustained length of time. But you basically I was just purging through like half a bottle just to make sure that like the filter was doing its thing.
Right.
I filtered all of my water, even though in some areas I probably didn't need to, sort of like right next to the reservoirs in Wales.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to like upset my body or anything,
Exactly.
so I played safe and spent it doesn't take very long. To fill a bottle is like probably under a minute to fill a bottle that size.
Right.
So for a 5-minute stop, I could drink a ton of water to the point where I couldn't drink anymore, and then fill my 3 bottles up and get moving.
You see a lot of guys running a big frame bag.
Yeah.
I seem to remember you saying something about smaller bags. Lots of smaller bags was better.
I'm not sure. I don't really know. I kind of used what I had, to be honest, because I didn't have any other options to use. And with the fat bike being a race geometry frame, the triangle is quite small.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a solution where I could carry 3 bottles and still be able to carry all the things I needed. So I was trying to do it without the frame bag to begin with. I like to kind of keep some stuff separate. So like the bag I've got in the middle here was predominantly for tooling and stuff that I'd only need if there was an emergency. So I only went in there when things were bad and I was almost crying. The bag up here was all the sort of things that I might need, the sort of stuff. So my filters and like my spork, and I was storing a bit of food in there as well. But yeah, the things I needed regularly, like my charge blocks and stuff, all of that sort of thing lived in there with inside little bags and stuff to stop it getting wet. The go-to when I get to a pub would be to grab my charge blocks, grab my cables, grab my mains plug and just dive for a socket in the pub and
just get recharged.
just whilst I was sat there trying to charge things up and stuff. And yeah, getting savvy at doing that stuff quickly, it wasn't first nature to me to do to begin with. And you're watching other people when they're in there and they're straight on it, in it, done. And yeah, felt a bit like an amateur to begin with. All the things.
Do you think a dynamo would have helped? Or is
probably not, to be honest, because you could charge the charge blocks up at each checkpoint, so you're only off grid fully for like 3 days. And I never got to a point where I got close to running out, so I was using 2 of these 10,000 milliamp Anker blocks. Everyone seems to use these brand ones because they're, for the weight of what they are, they're quite high capacity. And yeah, 2 of them was almost overkill, to be honest. I could have almost got away with the 1. Yeah. Because the Garmin I was using, the smaller one, the battery would last about 8 hours charging for navigation, but it'd only take about half an hour to charge plugged into this, and you can charge it whilst you're still riding. Yeah. So 30 minutes plugged in, and then it'd be good to go for another 8 hours.
As for the bike drop bars on a fat bike?
Yeah, the best.
What's going on?
Yeah, well, the logic was, having never done anything like this, that the more hand positions would probably be better, and like the weight of the Jones style bars and stuff, it was actually lighter to run the setup I've got there, even with the TT bars. It came out a tiny bit less with a few more hand positions, and the one I was really keen on was having a position I could get my body weight off my hands completely, just to kind of look after them, and the time trial bars did that. And the kind of time trial position combined with the big tyres really gave me like the ability to properly time trial over really, really rough terrain, which I probably wouldn't have been able to do on a gravel bike. So for vast chunks of Kielder and stuff, I was sat down in a relatively aero position, and yeah, it felt great. It was sort of spinning along at a really good speed, and felt like I wasn't investing too much energy to do that. So I think it looked after my body quite well by sort of having the combination of the tyres and the time trial setup. So yeah, I would definitely use that again. I wouldn't change any of that. So it was great. Yeah.
So I guess food is just a case of eat whatever you can find.
Yeah, naively, I didn't really think. I worried a bit about food, and I had way too much food on board at the beginning, which also didn't help how much effort I was having to put in to get up the hills. So 1.5 kilos of flapjack was a silly idea, because everyone else was just stopping for 2 seconds at a shop and stuffing their face and getting going again.
The one thing that obviously everybody found out about is the infamous pedal, or lack of it.
Yeah.
That was when did that start playing up?
So it started playing up in stage 3. So the stage 3 ran from Garrigill, I think it is, or Carrigill, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce, up to Fort Augustus. I got up and over there was a couple of big passes in that kind of stage, fairly close to the beginning. The minute I remember noticing something was a bit weird, I thought my cleats had gone a bit funny, because I'd had problems with the cleats at the beginning. I'd bought cheap replacement ones from China rather than buying the genuine ones, because I just didn't have the time to get any. I basically looked at my shoes I ride in and realised I didn't have much cleat left before leaving. I was like, probably should replace that. So I bought some crappy ones, and like they were too big, and like I couldn't unclip. So when I was riding to the train station with Michael Page on the kind of the Friday on the way down, I couldn't actually unclip, which was a bit of a worry.
Yeah.
So on the morning of the event at like 5 a.m, I was sat outside my tent right by the Land's End signpost, using like a rock to like scuff down the size of these cleats, because they're only made of like brass. They're really soft, but they were too big. So I spent like half an hour with sat with a coffee watching the sunrise whilst scuffing them down to fit, and got them to fit in the end, and then that was okay. And then like kind of 2/3 of the way into that stage 3, just before I got up and over, there was a pass called the Koryak Pass, which the best way to describe it is it's a bit like the kind of switchback sort of 15-20 wiggles that you see on the Tour de France stages, but cover it in boulders, and it's kind of almost impossible to ride up, but just about managed it on this. But yeah, just approaching that section, I realised that like my foot wasn't staying like clipped in right. It felt like there was lots of float in the one pedal, and I was like, oh no, I thought my like pedal had failed or something, because it's not unknown to happen, is it, that like bearings drop and fail. And I was carrying spare bearing pedals actually, just in case, because that was one thing that has happened to me before, where the pedals come off. And I had a look down and realised that it wasn't that at all. And at first I thought it was the pedal that had come loose and I just had to tighten it up, but when I got off the bike and had a proper look, I realised that it was the insert glue joint had like failed in the carbon. And there's very little you can do about that.
Yeah.
So quite a few kind of trips. I was in I made it into Fort Augustus and was chatting away to a guy whilst I was waiting for some chips, and the only thing I could see that I could use was like a can of cola, and, like rip up the aluminium and like wedge it down into the gaps that were slowly appearing between the insert and the carbon. As obviously as it was going round, it was like wearing the carbon away.
Try to eliminate movement.
Yeah, that was kind of useless, to be honest. I collected all sorts of supplies of super glue. I was trying all sorts of different things. They were all equally useless. But yeah, it was a bit of a kind of last chance saloon to try and make it last, but it didn't really work. And then like the tail end or the beginning of the 4th stage, I was riding sat down mostly across the terrain, which was not good. It was a recipe for disaster, really, sort of leaning on the one knee, pedaling hard up the hills using one leg, and then like just trying to not stand up and push on that at all. And descending, especially with one leg down, like if you've ever done that for hours on end, it really, really hurts, and it starts to sort of ache above the knee. It starts to ache in the back of the leg where like you're sort of tensing like unnaturally. It was a bit of a mess to kind of get through that bit. But
so how far do you reckon you went one leg?
About 250 miles from the end was when it failed, I think, and then it wiggled and wiggled and wiggled for about 180, 190 before I couldn't stay clipped to my pedal at all, and I couldn't pedal fast enough with one pedal to stay warm. So like that was kind of rock bottom when I got to like this tiny little church in a place called Saya.
Yeah, I remember you messaged, you dropped me a message.
Yeah, that's where I took the picture of the pedal like at a horrendous angle, and like I didn't really know, couldn't see a way I could get to the end.
Yeah.
So it was almost like, this is it. This is me done. I can't stay warm. I was there just sort of shaking away. So I went into this church and they had like 2,000 watt heaters. So I like wedged them into like a little shape and just stood there next to them until like I warmed up a bit. I made like my kind of survival meal, which was the last piece of food I had left actually. I hadn't picked up enough food during the stage to get to the end, and ate that, got warm, and then at that point the rain and the wind had kind of eased off a bit, and came up with the great idea of taping my foot to the pedal with insulation tape, which was great whilst it lasted, and I was so happy. I was like, yes, maybe I could get to the end. And then like 5 miles down the road, it just the pedal ripped straight off the bike, and that was properly rock bottom. Just sort of sat there for a minute just looking at it, not really knowing what to do. Pedal's still like stuck to my shoe. I was just like
yeah, I couldn't believe, because obviously we came up to sort of help you bring you back home after the event, and we were there sort of filming you coming across this down this fell or mountain, and then announced to everybody you're going to be here in a few minutes, and then you didn't turn up. So we walked down the road, and there you were in a shed, found your saviour, as it were, a guy that could fix your pedal.
Whilst I was sat on the side of the road, there was in the middle of nowhere, but there was a lady walking like a dog, and like she came across to see if I was okay, so I was just basically sat there looking very sorry for myself with a bike just led in the road. I didn't even bother moving it because there was no cars or anything up there. It was completely deserted. And I explained to her what had happened. And, like, she goes, "There's a garage just down in where was it? What was the name of the place called?"
Oh, I can't think
of the name of it now. She said, "Yeah, it's about sort of.
Yeah.
I think at that point it was about maybe 8 miles from where I was or something silly."
Yeah.
And she said, "Yeah, they can probably help you down there. It's the only place around anywhere that can probably help you." And Kim Brace was the name of the place actually. And luckily it was downhill most of the way with the tailwinds. Like with one pedal, it wasn't the worst. I had to like pedal like cyclically like that rather than sort of how you normally pedal a bike. You have to sort of swing your ghost leg around at the same time, otherwise it didn't really work. And eventually made it down into Kim Brace, and got the guy busy with it in the garage building me this monstrosity. But, it got me to the end, which was amazing.
Because we were obviously watching you on the tracker, and I noticed you were sort of coming and going with Mark.
Yeah. So it's been weird. So we had completely polar opposite setups, like from the beginning. He was on like the only thing they shared in common was the material they're made of, both being titanium. So he had like one of the kind of the nicer looking gravel bikes in terms of the frame design and material and stuff. And kind of it was very much the kind of the bike to be on when the kind of gravel was relatively smooth, and when the roads were smooth, that bike was tough to keep up with. But the minute it got rough, like this was a lot quicker, and over the ebb and flow of that entire route, like, with both of us having similar fitnesses, there was almost nothing in it, and it came right down to the wear with the problems I'd had.
I know, because we were obviously watching you, and you were when you were getting your pedal fixed, we were sort of talking about it, and you've obviously already said, "Oh, it's not really a race. We're in it for this, that, and I could sort of detect because Mark came past you.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? He stopped to see if I was okay.
Yeah, and you were both sort of saying, "Oh yeah, we're not bothered. You know, we'll get to the end, see you at the finish." Yeah. And then of course, after it was all over, you both said how you were sort of watching each other's time.
Basically, I was like not watching myself, just trying to make sure that I somehow managed to beat his time. But he was a true gent the whole way, to be fair. We rode a lot of the distance kind of side by side, because you're allowed to ride together, you're just not allowed to slipstream on the event. And it's a bit of a strange one really, because I think there's more to be gained from the kind of the mental boost that somebody else being around gives you, for someone to chat to and like just to keep trucking. And we did a huge stretch towards Manchester together where we just sort of rode side by side, and just cracked on and got the miles done really. But
I must admit, I was well impressed with your ability to not accept any help. I was stood there and you were clearly hungry.
Yeah, I had no food at all.
And in hindsight, I shouldn't have said anything, but I then said, "Oh, I've got some food in the van. Do you want some?" And you just calmly stood there and said, "No."
I couldn't take anything. I wanted to stay true to it as well. Like,
I'm well impressed.
Yeah, I think there's something,
no help.
The whole self-supported thing, like that really sort of strikes something in me. I think. Not just to abide by it, but like as a method of running a race, I think it's really good.
Well, it's great that you've got that desire to do it properly. Yeah,
I think
there's so many things you could do to ease your journey that aren't officially supposed to be done. But
I didn't sleep in a B&B at any point either. A few people had to.
Yeah, I did notice.
Quite bad. It's within the rules, to be fair. Like anything that's available to everybody is fair game. So it's all good.
So next year.
I don't know about that. No, the type of event was great, and I think tackling some of their other events, like I don't feel I've got any unfinished business with that route, so like I don't feel I have to go back and sort of prove anything or whatnot. So
well, I suppose the appeal of things like that is the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you know what's coming, it's not really as
I guess never say never.
I've done it already, so I know what's coming.
Yeah.
Let's move on to something fresh.
It's quite selfish as well, because obviously like other people have to pick up the life whilst you're away for sort of best part of 2 weeks, and like, that's a big ask. And like Amy to have done everything whilst I was away, so can't thank her enough. Really, it was great. So I think what I try and do is pick off some of their other events. They've got plenty of like Trans Wales ones where like, the winning time for that was like 15 hours or something this year, which is just ridiculous. That's a much quicker pace than GBDURO, but obviously over a shorter duration. There's a few other events that score quite highly as well that I'd like to try. So like there's an event up north called All Points North, where they just give you a number of locations you have to get to and prove you've been there with a timestamp.
Right. And
it's up to you how you get from A to B. It's up to you which bike you use, and off you go basically. Everybody starts at the same point, and winner's the first person with all of them ticked off. And